Okay, so tonight is the exciting second part of the literature review. I know you probably couldn't sleep a wink all week thinking about where do we go from here with our literature review. So it's just a reminder, the literature review is not a summary. It's a critical evaluation. It's you demonstrating your knowledge, and it's the foundation or the basis of your capstone and dissertation. And as a reminder, you're not just summarizing what you read. So last week, we talked about synthesis, sort of like within the paragraphs, how to do that. This week, we're going to talk about thematic organization, which is the most common way that lit reviews are organized. A lot of people get hung up on this. They find it very challenging. But I think after we talk for a little bit, you might realize that you've been doing this all along. Think about it. You go into your closet, right? And you put your winter clothes one place, your summer clothes in another place. You have your pajamas in one place. That's thematic organization. You're just categorizing things. Some of us do this all the time if we play these little games in the New York Times where you find categories or connections. So this game is asking you to find 4 words that have a connection. It's a really fun game. You're doing the same thing with your lit review. You're trying to find that connection. I'll be quiet for a minute if you want to look at this and see if you can see a connection. It is fun. And here's the answer. Some of them were poultry cuts, some of them were fastening verbs, some of them are neckwear, and some of them would begin with the word lucky, like lucky charm, lucky duck. So those little things over there, poultry cuts, fastening verbs, those are like your themes, right? That's what you're doing. You're dividing things into themes. Or another way that I think about it when I'm thinking about it is, like if I got a big plate, I always talk about plates of cookies, but these look like muffins instead of cookies. I couldn't find the pictures of the cookies, but if I was given a big tray of cookies, I would put like my chocolate chip all together in one place, my oatmeal raisin in another, my peanut butter in another, mainly because I can really only have one. I'm too old to eat a lot of cookies anymore. So I could only have like one. And I don't want to pick up that oatmeal raisin when I wanted the chocolate chip. I want the chocolate chip. So I need everything in the right place. Speaking of, I just realized that Tuesday is Fat Tuesday, and I wrote on my calendar, get a donut. It's Fat Tuesday. But only one donut. But the same thing, you just organize. And when I get to the donut shop, the donuts will be organized by tray, right? They'll be this, and I have to get the certain type for Fat Tuesday, but they will be organized by like raspberry cream, and then that's what you're doing. You're taking all that literature that you've read and you're categorizing it, you're clumping it into groups, and you're not going to find some magical unicorn article that's going to say, these are your themes. You're developing them. This is you. You're the researcher. You're telling us what the themes are. And you're calling them what you're labeling them. Obviously, the labels have to make sense. You don't want a theme and then information below it where a reader's like, wait a minute, I don't see how that theme connects to what I just read. It should be a label marking what you're writing. So here's like an example. There's a woman who did a longitudinal study on people who had near-death experiences. She did a qualitative study interviewing people internationally. And then she did a thematic sort of analysis of what happens. And now this sort of appeared in her results and not her lit review, but it's the same activity. It's the same thing going on. She found that with near-death experiences, she created these different themes. One is that there are certain things about a near-death experience that it doesn't matter what the culture is. So features across cultures. Then there are culturally specific reports. So she called that cultural level. And then no two experiences are exactly like, so she called that individual level. Those would be her themes. And if she were writing this out as a literature review, right? She would have like chapter 2 literature review or whatever as a level 1 heading. She would introduce the literature review. The purpose of this project was to better understand near-death experiences. A review of the literature showed the following themes. I always recommend that you list the themes as sort of your thesis statement of that introduction. And you list those themes in the order you're going to discuss them in that chapter or in that section. It's a really nice tool for the reader. They know what's coming up. They know what order to expect it. And it's a nice tool for you to keep yourself organized. And then, right, she would have features across cultures as a level 2 heading. And then beneath that, an explanation of what that means, information about that, research about that. Cultural level is another level 2 heading, information, et cetera, et cetera. And then she found another main heading, outcomes of NDEs. And she found that there were psychological, spiritual, physical, and social. So those would be other headings. And you can have subheadings within your heading. So you could have, let's see, cultural level as a level 2. And then maybe there's 2 subheadings beneath that. Like maybe one deals with collectivist cultures and one deals with individualistic cultures. And those would be level 3 subheadings beneath them with information under each of those. Please keep in mind that with heading levels, for APA, they want you to have at least a pair. You at least should have 2. So like I wouldn't have a level 2 and then a level 3 and then go back to level 2, because that would only be 1. I would have to have a level 2, 2 level 3s, then back to level 2. You can have 3, you can have an odd number, but there has to be at least 2. It has to be at least a pair. And this is just to show you that, yeah, we do this kind of thing all the time. This is from my work, from my teams at work. We collect a lot of different information. And it's like, at one point we just had this, you were just scrolling forever. And if you work in teams often, you know that scrolling in teams is a disaster. I hate teams. Teams is like my least favorite thing ever. So to make it easier, I created some folders with themes and put things in according to the theme. So, hey, if you're looking for how to evaluate students, here's that information instead of trying to scroll through this mess. And I'm sure, you're doing this thing all the time. You're organizing your closet, you're organizing your whatever, your silverware. You're constantly putting things and categorizing them into themes. You're doing this a lot. This is not a new activity. So just a reminder, we're then synthesizing within those themes. Below those themes, you're not reverting back to a study by and just providing that annotated bibliography type of format. You're going to be synthesizing beneath the themes. So it'll look something like this. Now, this is a hypothetical project. This is not a real project, but the title or the subject of the project is animal-assisted therapy on pain perception with an occupation focus. Again, it's not real. So that would be sort of like the project. And then again, you introduce the themes, you introduce the chapter or the section. This is a literature review. The purpose of this project is to do this. A review of the literature, uncovered the following themes, A, B, and C, and D. First theme, human-animal bond. So I have that heading. Now the heading is not part of the text. I don't have a heading that says human-animal bond, and then below that I say like, this is about, expecting the reader to connect the theme, connect the heading to what I'm saying. I'm still gonna write out and say like, the human-animal bond was common in the literature. I'm gonna still talk about that theme beneath it. I'm going to start with an introduction of what the theme means in my voice. Then I bring in support. I bring in the research that supports that human-animal bond. And as we talked about last week, if I have my materials organized, like I have tags on them if they're electronically, or I have them in folders, or I'm using that Excel spreadsheet that I showed you, it's going to be easy for me, right? I just go and I sort by theme and I find everything that says human-animal bond, and I start bringing those resources in to support it. So as you can see, I bring in source 1 and 2, then I talk a little more, I bring in source 3. Then the next theme is pain perception. So I have a heading, pain perception. I introduce what I mean by pain perception. What is this? So the reader's clear on what I'm talking about. I bring in source 3 again, and source 4. I'm back to source 1 and source 4. So you see how it's not source 1, source 2, source 3, 4, 5, 6. It's not just like a summary of everything I've read. I'm sprinkling these in and out to support what I'm saying. And then the third one was animal-assisted therapy. Again, I introduce it. I have my theme as a heading. I introduce what the theme means to the reader so they understand what I'm talking about. I'm back to source 2, source 1, source 4, and 2, you know, whatever, just bringing them all in. And then I talk about my theoretical support. This was set up sort of like an OT capstone, which they often like that theory at that place. I know in the dissertation, they like the theory earlier in that section chapter. So as always, follow your department template. You know, don't follow this as an example. I'm just giving you an example. Follow your department templates. You know where things should appear. And keep in mind, your lit reviews are messy. What's going to happen is you are going to, you know, put your themes in, start plugging things in, step back, look at it. Oh no, that's not right. Move things around. It's going to take, nobody sits down and writes a lit review. Nobody. It's going to take several attempts. It's okay. And it's okay for it to be messy for a while. Last week, we talked about organizing our materials, but you're also going to organize your lit review. So some people like to use a traditional outline, as you can see in the top corner of this slide, where they write down their headings and their subheadings, and then they just sort of plug things in underneath it. That's easy for a lot of people to do that, but that's not how you have to approach it. There's no right or wrong way. In the Writing Center, we have back resources. So we have provided suggestions for how to organize your writing if you're an auditory learner, if you're a kinesthetic learner, if you're a visual learner. Maybe a traditional outline does not work for you. Maybe doing a vision board and having pictures of things works for you. If you're an auditory person, maybe just talking to your computer and just getting the ideas down that way works better for you. I know I mentioned this a lot, but I'm a Post-it. I love to use Post-it notes when I'm doing a project like this. So what I do is I just like have an information dump. I just throw everything down. I just type it all down, get all my ideas down before I forget what they are. And then I step back and I go through what I have there, and it looks like that messy picture. It's just a complete mess. And I, on each Post-it note, write down a different idea that I have. And then I look at them and like a puzzle, I move them around and I shape them around and I organize them. And if I'm getting really frustrated, I'll slam them against the wall and slap them up there. And then that makes me feel better for a little bit. And I, you know, and then I go back to my draft and put them in the order that I have my Post-it notes. So I'm like, okay, now that works. And then sometimes I'll make Post-it notes just for the themes. You know, a Post-it note for each theme, and then I try to like Post-it note ideas beneath them. Again, it's a mess. If anyone were to see it, were to walk in and look at it, they'd be like, she's a lunatic. What is she doing? But after doing that and going through it a couple times, it's organized and it's a way that works for me. I'm not good with the traditional outline. So if you are not either, that's fine. There are multiple ways for you to get your ideas down, organize them. We can help you at the Writing Center. You can make appointments with us and we can look at what you have and try to help you with the organization as well. We also have resources about like reverse outlining and organization. We have a new resource on flow, making like different ways you can organize things so you have a nice flow. So you're welcome to look at any of those resources at any time as well. And it's going to look like, you're going to feel like those birds caught in a tornado, just, you know, like what's going on, circling, because you're beginning, you're checking, you're going back. And in the middle of all this, you're also going back into the library and be like, wait a minute, do I need to read something else? Do I need to bring in something else? Oh, and your committee is sending you back and saying, can you find more information on X? Can you go back and find this? be flexible. It's okay. Don't get frustrated when you get sent back to do things again. It's part of the process. So how do you know when things are complete? You know, if you are putting in your ideas and everything that comes up, you're finding research that's just secondary sources for your primary sources. Like everything's referring back to things you already have. Then you've probably done a pretty good search. If you change your keywords around, you do use different, but you're still finding all the same information, nothing's changing. And obviously, if your advisor or committee says you're done, you're done. You're not going to argue with that. What I would do when I'm at that point where I'm like, I think I've exhausted my search, I'm not quite sure, I would make an appointment with a librarian, because they are wizards at this kind of a thing, and they might find that one stone that you didn't turn over, you know, and they might unturn that stone that you missed, or they might say, yeah, you've done it, you've exhausted everything. But they are there for your support. They're there for students and faculty to make appointments, and you could say to them, this, you know, these are the search terms I entered, this is what I did, and, you know, they could let you know if maybe there's something that you're missing and maybe there's something you could add. So that's what I would do. I'd definitely touch base with them and take advantage of that resource that's there for me. Let's see, and then this is about our resources. So next week, we are going to get into our methods chapter, which the methods is like a recipe. It is a very process-oriented style of writing. It is very different from the literature review. And that's what sort of makes these big projects challenging, is because every chapter or every section sort of has a different style to it. You're doing a different type of organization, a different type of writing. But as always, we are here at the Writing Center to help you with it. Do not be shy about making appointments with us.